Johnny Carson, the king of late night, the man who ruled American television for 3 decades with nothing more than a microphone, a razor-sharp wit, and a mastery of timing that made millions tune in night after night, was famously private about his true feelings, rarely letting slip the grudges, dislikes, or frustrations that inevitably came with hosting thousands of guests. But when it came to Madonna, the material girl, who dominated the 80s with her unapologetic sexuality and rebellious persona, Carson's dislike wasn't just another case of a guest rubbing him the wrong way. It was absolute, unshakable hatred. And now, years later, the truth about why Johnny utterly hated Madonna has finally surfaced, and it reveals a story of two titans colliding on live television. A clash not just of personalities but of eras, styles, and values that left Johnny fuming and his crew scrambling to contain the fallout. To understand why this moment still lingers in Hollywood whispers, you have to know Carson's code. For Johnny, The Tonight Show wasn't just entertainment, it was a sacred stage built on respect, professionalism, and above all, control. Guests could be wild, unpredictable, even outrageous, but Johnny always had to maintain the upper hand, his cool demeanor keeping chaos in check. And then came Madonna. By the late 1980s, she was not just a singer. She was a global phenomenon, a provocateur who thrived on controversy, someone who weaponized shock value and reveled in pushing boundaries. When Carson's producers booked her, they thought it would be ratings gold, a chance to bring youthful edge to an aging late-night format. But what they didn't realize was that they were lighting a fuse that would explode live on air. From the moment Madonna stepped onto the set, dressed in deliberately provocative attire that seemed designed to make Middle America clutch their pearls, Carson felt it. Her energy was different, not playful, not collaborative, but combative, like she was daring him to react. She slouched in her chair, ignored his carefully crafted questions, and instead launched into bold, explicit comments about sex, power, and fame that made the audience roar with nervous laughter but left Johnny stone-faced. To the viewers at home, it looked like an awkward but amusing clash of styles, but those in the studio saw the truth. Johnny wasn't amused. He was furious, gripping his cue cards tighter, his smile turning tighter by the minute, his legendary patience being tested in ways no guest had ever managed. After the taping, according to staffers, Carson stormed into his dressing room slamming the door so hard the walls shook, and ranted that Madonna was the most self-absorbed guest I've ever had, and that she cared nothing for the art of conversation or the rhythm of comedy, only for shocking the audience and dominating the spotlight. He was livid that she ignored the pre-show notes, refused to follow even basic stage directions, and dismissed his attempts to steer the interview as if he were a prop in her act. For Carson, who tolerated Robin Williams's manic improvisations, Richard Pryor's raw confessions, and Don Rickles' brutal roastings, Madonna represented something entirely different. An ego so large it smothered the stage, a blatant disregard for the mutual respect he demanded of his guests, and a level of arrogance he simply could not forgive. Behind the scenes, the crew whispered about her diva behavior. She had kept the taping delayed with last-minute wardrobe changes, dismissed the producer's notes as boring, and even mocked the warm-up comedian before going on stage, leaving the staff rattled and Johnny seething before the cameras even rolled. And while the audience at home laughed nervously at her audacity, Johnny sat there silently raging, delivering forced chuckles that anyone who knew him well could see were fake, because in his mind, Madonna wasn't just crossing the line, she was trampling all over it. The clash became the stuff of late-night legend. Carson's carefully controlled stage invaded by the ultimate pop rebel, a man of restraint facing a woman of excess, and while Madonna basked in the attention, Carson vowed privately that she would never return. Producers later admitted that when asked about bringing her back for future appearances, Johnny flatly refused, saying, "Not on my show. Never again." And for the king of late night, those words were final. What makes this story even more fascinating is how it symbolized the generational shift happening in entertainment at the time. Johnny represented the old guard of television, where wit, timing, and charm reigned supreme, while Madonna embodied the new era of shock, spectacle, and unapologetic rebellion. For Carson, her behavior wasn't just disrespectful, it was a threat to everything he had built, a reminder that the world was moving into territory he neither liked nor understood, and his hatred for her wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. Media outlets at the time spun the encounter as edgy, controversial fun, but those who worked closest with Carson knew better. This wasn't a playful clash, it was a rare moment where Johnny lost his cool, a scar that remained in his memory long after the cameras stopped rolling. Even years later, in private conversations with close friends, Carson reportedly brought up Madonna as an example of what he loathed most in celebrity culture: arrogance without substance, shock without craft, fame without respect. And perhaps the most telling detail of all came from one of his longtime producers, who revealed that Carson, usually diplomatic about his least favorite guests, once confided bluntly, "I hated her," a rare and unfiltered confession from a man who almost never showed his hand. And yet, the irony of it all is that the very clash he despised became one of the most talked about moments of his later career. A clip replayed endlessly as a symbol of late-night unpredictability, proof that even the mighty Carson could be thrown off balance. For Madonna, it was just another headline, another controversy to fuel her image, but for Johnny, it was a wound. A reminder that sometimes the stage he controlled so perfectly could be hijacked by someone who cared nothing for his rules. And now, as we look back at that fateful night, we see not just an awkward interview but a battle between two icons. One representing tradition, the other rebellion, and the hatred it left behind speaks volumes about the man Johnny Carson really was. A man who valued respect, craft, and control above all else, and who could forgive almost anything except arrogance. And though he never spoke of it publicly, never aired his grievances in interviews, the truth has finally emerged. Johnny Carson utterly hated Madonna, not just for what she said or did that night, but for what she represented, and the bitterness he carried proves that even kings of late night had enemies they dared not name. And here at Hollywood Vault 8 AM, we open those vaults, shine a light on those secrets, and bring you the truths buried beneath the glamour, because behind every laugh and every standing ovation lies a story the cameras were never meant to show. So if you were stunned by this revelation, buckle up, because the vault is only just beginning to open.